For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of podcasting and justice in the Old Republic, before the Dark Times, before the Empire, before Conan O'Brien took over podcasting. That's right. The Geek History lesson on me, myself, Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi, is now in session. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Jason Browncloak Inman.
I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson. Welcome to your Mind University, because you have stumbled onto the podcast where we take one character, construct, or force wielder from popular culture and teach you everything you need to know about them in about an hour. And I have to say, I've been thinking about what kind of podcast Jedis would have, and I think ours are way more interesting.
I don't think Jedis would podcast because I think they would think it was a waste of time.
Well, you put podcasting in your intro, so...
Yeah. It's a pun, Ashley.
I know. But I was like, what would Jedis podcast about?
I actually also don't think that Jedis make...
Content?
Puns.
Puns?
I don't think they pun. I don't think they have time for humor. I don't think there are Jedi comedians, so that's what I'm saying. I don't think there are Jedi podcasters, YouTubers, content creators. I think the Jedi's like, those are beneath us. We must commune with the Force.
Yes.
Anyways, we are talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi because Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi, the longest and unnecessary title of all time, is hitting Disney Plus very soon, starring old Ewan McGregor, who is in a lot of traveling commercials right now. I don't know if you guys have seen those. I think it's a Travelocity that he's the commercial guy. He's like, we got to think about the places, the things we buy. We think about the places we should go.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is a commercial for, but I've seen it so many times.
Maybe it's
the Super Bowl.
Expedia?
Maybe.
Yeah. But he's talking...
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff. Isn't stuff great?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So, you've seen him all around. He's going to be in Star Wars Obi. They could have just called the show Kenobi, but whatever.
I thought it was called Kenobi until literally the teaser trailer dropped a few weeks ago, and it was like Star Wars : Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I was like, this is too long, my friends. The hashtag is going to be Kenobi.
Like Logan, it should have just been Kenobi.
Yeah.
We all know what it is. We all know it's Star Wars the minute you see him in that brown cloak. To me, the only...
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan.
The worst title would have been Star Wars Episode 4, that character you remember from A New Hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi, but from actually in between Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, before Episode 4, A New Hope, Kenobi.
It should have been, hey, remember that sideshow statue where they mashed their two faces together? We're going to do that on screen.
Basically. This lesson actually was not suggested by anybody, so I guess we don't have any...
Shame on you.
I guess we don't have any Star Wars fans out there.
That's nice to know.
But I do want to give a special shout out to... we brought on good old Padawan for this episode. We brought in our research assistant, Diego Nunez. He helped it out with the assisting of the writing of this episode. He dug deep into the Clone Wars and some of the post-Revenge of the Sith stuff that happened, and I really want to thank him for that help. So go give him a fancy shout out, Diego. Great job.
And be nice about his Padawan braid.
Yeah. He doesn't want to cut it. I've told him several times. He's like, I'm keeping it. And I'm like, I'm ready to promote you tonight. And he just wants to keep that braid, but it's okay. Just FYI, we're not going to cover every single thing that Obi-Wan did because you should just watch the movies. But we're going to give you some interesting insights that are canon from the books and the comic books, and some stuff that is no longer considered to be canon that I thought was interesting. And just, give you a nice little foundation before you watch the show. And also, it might be some stuff that I think the show might crib from. So there you go. It's a nice little, first, what do you call the beginning of a meal? Like when you have it's a nice entree before the show.
The entree is your main meal.
Appetizer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Or amuse-bouche.
Thank you. Jedis are also not chefs. I think we should know that as well. All right, let's get to the 10-cent origin, Ashley. What's that?
That is the first part of the podcast where Jason tells you all the who's its and what's its galore in case you're going to go to Star Wars Celebration, but somebody doesn't know who Obi-Wan Kenobi is.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, of course, is a Star Wars character. His first appearance was in Star Wars of 1977. That's what it was originally called. He was created by George Lucas. He was portrayed by Alec Guinness and Ewan McGregor in live action. He has an alias known as Ben Kenobi. He is a human. He is male. His titles have been Padawan, Jedi Knight, Jedi General, Clone Wars General, and Jedi Master. His occupation, of course, is Jedi. He has an affiliation with the Jedi Order, the Galactic Republic, and the Rebel Alliance. His masters have been Yoda as a child and Qui-Gon Jinn. His apprentices have been Anakin Skywalker and Luke Skywalker. And we'll reveal what his homeworld is very soon. It's a very interesting story. I don't want to give that away in the Tencent origin. But I have a fun fact to make up for that.
Okay.
Because I'm hiding his homeworld of origin. I'm going to tell you a fun fact instead, Ashley.
Okay.
Ashley, did you know that Alec Guinness, the first actor to portray Obi-Wan Kenobi, was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor? It is the only acting-related Academy Award nomination that any Star Wars film has received. It was Alec Guinness in the first Star Wars. I did not know that before this lesson.
I also did not know that, but if anybody in the canon was going to, it deserved to be him.
Yeah, I just thought that was very surprising that this movie, Star Wars, and his character, I think they probably gave it to him because he was the old guard. Like, he was the most famous name of this movie besides Peter Cushing. So I think that this movie just like came out, grabbed everybody's attention, and they were like, well, we got to give it to some. Very similar maybe to Johnny Depp getting his nomination for Pirates of the Caribbean, the very first one.
Interesting.
Like a movie that like captured the zeitgeist, and they were like, well, I mean, we guess we got to give it to somebody in this movie. It's not going to win, but like,
Yeah.
But the only acting Academy Award nomination, Alec Guinness for Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Well deserved.
The first time out the gate.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the meet cute. What's that, Ashley?
That is the second part of the podcast where Professor Jason is going to tell you how he first met Obi-Wan Kenobi and how cute it was.
Well, I want to start with you. I'm pretty certain that we have told these stories many times in the podcast, but Ashley, I want to ask you again, what was your first time watching a Star Wars? Do you remember what it was? And what were your initial impressions of Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yeah, I remember exactly what it was. In the 90s, there was a remastered version of Star Wars that came out.
1997.
And my father was
special edition.
Was a Star Wars fan. And so we watched A New Hope together. And I don't remember having a particularly strong feeling about Obi-Wan Kenobi. I really liked Luke. He was my guy. But what I do remember about Alec Guinness is he was the first celebrity that I knew of who passed away.
Oh, really?
Which was actually not that many years later. And
really?
I remember being kind of surprised by that, even though he was like a million years old.
That's very kind of you, Ashley.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Of course, Sarah Guns here, talking from the grave. I thought this film was fluff.
You said some nastier things about it than that in that letter.
I did, but this is a very family-friendly podcast.
Yes, and I'm going to say, I don't know if you were wrong. I love how...
Well, we all cross our bridge over the River Kwai. And so
I love how bitter he is in some of those. I think he called it nonsense at one point. Like, it's so good. Alec Guinness, an absolute legend.
The film that got him another Oscar nomination.
The film that, I mean, arguably is what he's the most famous for.
You are correct. Our excellent research assistant and co-writer Diego has this for his meet cute. He said, when I was 7 years old, my sister took me to watch the re-release of Star Wars back in 1997. And I just want to say, if you can do math, you can figure out how old Diego is. And he saw the special edition. He's a fine young man. And he saw the special edition of A New Hope on the big screen. And he said, that was not only my introduction to Obi-Wan, but Star Wars in general.
Nice.
For me, I will tell you, a lot of some of the older folks on this podcast, like Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, will remember that there used to be on the major networks, the Sunday night movie, the Monday night movie. That was a big thing. There was also the Saturday night movie, but the Sunday and the Mondays were the Sunday was like where you put your big movie. And ABC in the late 80s and the early 90s would always run Star Wars movies. And I can tell you I have a very specific memory of watching the R2-D2 and C-3PO scene where they're wandering through the desert, and C-3PO calls him a trash can and kicks him.
Yeah.
And then it immediately cutting to commercials. I have a vivid, and I remember I can hear it in my brain, the ABC Sunday night movie. We'll be back after these messages. It was like right after he kicks R2-D2. It's like, you go that way, fine. And the ABC movie will come back, So that is my...
Weird choice by the programmer to put the commercial right there.
I think they were like, well, he told that droid to leave, so this is the time to talk about Metamucil and McDonald's. So that is my very specific memory of watching Star Wars. And I've always liked Obi-Wan Kenobi.
As far as I've known, he's always been your favorite character.
I will flat out say this. Obi-Wan Kenobi is my favorite Star Wars character. So I'm just going to put that out there. All right, let's jump into the History 101, the main meat of the lesson. Now, before we get to that, actually, I want to ask you a question here.
Okay.
Do you know that Obi-Wan Kenobi is based on a very legendary to me, and legendary to film students, I think, but is based on a very legendary film character, Ashley? And we're going to find out who that is after this. Okay, Ashley, let's kick into the main lesson by answering, do you know what famous film character from a film, so this fictional character, Obi-Wan Kenobi is based on?
Well, I surely don't. So I'm going to say that he is based on, do I know if this movie came out before Star Wars or not? Let me throw back even further. I'm going to say that he's based on whatever Orson Welles' name is in The Rosebud, in Citizen Kane.
In Citizen Kane?
He's based on Citizen Kane.
That is incorrect.
I don't know who he's based on. I'm assuming it's a Kurosawa character.
You are correct.
Yeah.
I'm going to badly mispronounce this name, even though I have seen this movie. The character is loosely inspired by General Makabe Rokuruto from the Akira Kurosawa film The Hidden Fortress.
Based on the Scottish play.
Yes. Now, General Makabe was played by, and if you friends, if you do not know who this actor is,
can I guess?
Yes, Ashley.
Toshiro Mifune.
Toshiro Mifune.
Oh, what a stud. I love him so much.
Who was a regular in several Kurosawa films. Now, if you have not seen The Hidden Fortress and you are a Star Wars fan, you owe it to yourself because you're going to watch The Hidden Fortress and realize how much of the plot George Lucas lifted for Star Wars A New Hope.
Do you like Vader's Castle? You're going to love The Hidden Fortress.
Yes. So let's get to Obi-Wan Kenobi's biography. Because Star Wars, again, the first Star Wars had a lot of inspiration. So we just talked about The Hidden Fortress. Now let's chat a little bit about the writing, because writer George Lucas pulled from a lot of sources. He pulled from Frank Herbert's Dune. He pulled from the Kurosawa film. He also pulled from a book called The Hero of a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. Ashley, do you want to elaborate a little bit about this book? Because I think it really is going to help explain Obi-Wan.
So Joseph Campbell's probably most famous for the archetype of the hero's journey.
Yes.
If you aren't familiar. And this is probably the best example, I would say, in practice of the hero's journey. I actually haven't read it.
It's a very dry book. I have read it.
But I know that it is about, like, Obi-Wan is based on or inspired by the...
We'll get to that.
Okay. Then I guess I won't say anything else about it. Hero's journey, it's really important. You're going to love it. Dark Night of the Soul.
Yes. Well, and that's what this book is, The Hero of a Thousand Faces. So Joseph Campbell basically demonstrated that many of the most popular stories over the last thousands of years and across cultures shared a specific formula. The formula is known, as Ashley was referring to, it's the hero's journey. It has a very specific plot structure. The hero's journey also has a repeating cast of characters. Character archetypes that exist in Star Wars. And again, Ashley is correct. Star Wars is probably the best example of the hero's journey, just in execution. The hero, of course, in Star Wars is Luke Skywalker. Now, Ashley, now you can answer this question.
Sorry.
Who is Obi-Wan in Joseph Campbell's structure?
He's the mentor, usually the elder mentor.
Correct. So this is officially from Joseph Campbell's The Hero of a Thousand Faces, summarized. The hero has to learn how to survive in a new world incredibly fast. So a mentor appears to them to give them a fighting chance. This mentor will describe how the new world operates. They will instruct the hero in using any innate abilities they possess. And the mentor will also gift the hero with equipment, because a level 1 hero never has any decent weapons or armor. So let's break this down in terms of Star Wars A New Hope. Obi-Wan gives Luke a purpose, going to Alderaan. Obi-Wan describes the Force and teaches him how to use it. And he gifts Luke with the first lightsaber we ever see on screen in Star Wars.
A laser sword.
Yes. Not as clumsy or random as the blaster. So again, if you want to know the full secret sauce of Star Wars, go read more Joseph Campbell. Now, Ashley, I do want to ask you, I will give you the roles of Joseph Campbell's archetypes are, of course, the hero, the mentor, the ally, the herald, the trickster, the shapeshifter, the guardian, and the shadow. We can leave Star Wars if you like. Do you have a favorite Joseph Campbell archetype from pop culture, Ashley? Because I think I have a prediction what your favorite one is.
Interesting. Can you give them to me again?
It's the hero.
Mm-hmm.
It's the mentor.
Mm-hmm.
It's the ally.
Mm-hmm.
It's the herald.
Mm-hmm.
It's the trickster.
Mm-hmm.
It's the shapeshifter.
Mm-hmm.
It's the guardian.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the shadow.
I usually like. It's also me trying to think off the top. I think allies are usually really good characters.
It's so funny. You're nailing in. That's the one. Okay.
But heralds and tricksters can be very fun too. But probably I would say, like, if I'm thinking about my favorite characters, it's usually the allies.
But is there a specific example of an ally out there that you like in pop culture?
I mean,
that would fit this role?
the easiest example is like Samwise Gamgee from
that's the one
Lord
I
of
was
the Rings.
thinking about.
Yeah.
I was literally going
Lord
to
of the
say.
Rings is also exactly the hero's journey, even though the hero's journey was written after.
I
Lord
was
of the
going
Rings.
to literally I was going to say it's Samwise Gamgee, the ally. Yeah. Just in case you want to know, like some of these, just
Gollum being a trickster.
the shapeshifter is basically Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
The herald is R2D2. The shadow is basically almost Darth Vader.
Yes, Leia is an ally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's like, you can basically figure them out. All right, so let's finally get to some of the highlights of Obi-Wan Kenobi's book and comic canon. We'll touch on some of these Star Wars legends. What is that? I'm so glad you asked.
What is it?
Well, Ashley, I'm so glad you asked without prompting. Well done.
I'm an actor.
Star Wars Legends basically is any of the comics or books, prose books,
Yes.
that are considered to be non-canon. Now, it's basically, here's the easy way to put it.
Mhm.
Star Wars Legends is Star Wars stuff made pre-Disney.
Yeah.
And Star Wars canon is everything post-Disney, because Disney is trying to be like, all of our comic books, all of our books, they're canon. That's impossible. They'll ignore them too, because
They already have, in fact.
they actually already have. But that's what they're trying to do.
But also, for those of you at home screaming, but Coruscant came from the Legends canon. Yes, and they cherry pick what they like from the Legends.
So did Grand Admiral Thrawn, but he appeared
Yes,
in
he
the
did.
wrong time period.
Yes,
when he showed
he
up.
surely did.
But we're not here to talk about Grand Admiral Thrawn. Make that movie, please. We're here to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan was born on the planet Stujon in 57 BBY. So we're going to explain that real quick.
I have a question after that about the planet itself.
We're going to talk about the planet. Let me explain the time.
Yes.
And here's the thing. Obi-Wan Kenobi is 57 in A New Hope.
And he looks, what did dogs say? Rough.
Yes. So the BBY system, I think, is a very clunky system.
All fake time systems are difficult.
The ABY-BBY dating system is used to track the number of years in the history of the Galactic Civil War based around the destruction of the first Death Star, basically the first Star Wars movie, as year 0. So it's before the Battle of Yavin, which is where that explodes. And ABY is after the Battle of Yavin. So that's why Obi-Wan is born 57 years before the Battle of Yavin. So that's how Star Wars, it's going to be literally the only time I'm going to talk about it, guys. So,
but thank you for addressing it, because it is important.
What's the question you wanted to ask?
Say the name.
Stujon.
Say the name of the planet again. I'm sorry.
Stujon.
So that's which is your best guess? We've never heard it said.
It's STEWJON. I have the origin of where that name came from.
So just based on the way the name sounds, I was going to make the joke of, are the other residents' names Curly and Larry and Moe?
I don't understand that reference.
Like the Three Stooges?
Oh. Well, I mean,
that joke is for only 57-year-old men and up.
I do have the story of where Stujon came from.
Great. Hit me.
Stujon is considered to be canon. Now, as far as I can find, Stujon has never appeared in actual Star Wars canon besides being just mentioned in a book.
Okay.
And it was mentioned in a book or a comic because in 2010 at Star Wars Celebration 5, George Lucas was being interviewed by television host Jon Stewart and declared that Obi-Wan Kenobi's house is Stujon. So later, Stujon officially became Obi-Wan's home planet because it was added to StarWars.com's encyclopedia of lore. The original bit was that Lucas, during the celebration, Riley joked that the planet was called Stujon in his first draft of A New Hope, apparently joking. And so like they were literally like, well, because George Lucas said it was Stujon, it's canon.
I mean, I guess there's worse ways to claim something in Star Wars as canon. Like George Lucas is the progenitor of all things, so sure.
So it would be interesting to see if maybe this planet finally becomes canon in the show.
Oh my God, if they flash back to it and Jon Stewart is his dad, that would be so funny.
So in the first 6 months of Obi-Wan Kenobi's life, he was less than 6 years old. He was sent to the Jedi Temple.
Okay, first you said 6 months, and then you said 6 years.
Oh, I meant 6 months. I'm sorry.
Okay, so as an actual infant, they Clark Kented him off to
yes, because
the Jedi Temple.
in the way you're supposed to actually find Jedi babies is they test your blood, they test for midichlorians, and basically if you're over a certain amount, you go into the Jedi Temple.
If your rattle is floating around your head, you're going.
Because again, remember, it's a big thing that they think Anakin is too old.
And then they were like, Lucas 16, this is fine.
Yes.
Yes.
So he started training with other Jedi younglings. He learned several Force techniques by the age of 3. And like most other younglings, he was taught by Master Yoda for most of his early career in the ways of Force.
Well,
and
they're the
Jedi
same
Trilogy.
height. He's not that scary.
And he also learned basic combat forms and he got his first lightsaber training from a Jedi master named Sin Drulling.
Cool.
Now, Kenobi was actually a bit of a troublemaker when he was a kid. And because of that, he actually was like one of the, you know how when kids play baseball, there's always that one kid that was like picked last?
We didn't play baseball where I come from.
You know when you play hockey in Canada, you know the one kid that's picked last when you're doing different teams?
Yes.
Is that correct? Did I get it on there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
When you're playing water polo.
You make me richer than I am.
So Obi-Wan Kenobi is kind of that kid in terms of being chosen for Padawans.
He had low lung capacity.
he was getting a bit older.
Oh, I thought he had asthma.
And he was getting past that. He was around 12 or 13. And like most of the other Jedis were like, if you don't get picked to be a Padawan sooner than later, we're probably just going to send you to work in the library or the kitchens. You know? Honestly,
being a Jedi librarian, that would be like the dopest job.
Yeah, there is a Jedi librarian.
I know there is. And if I had to be a Jedi, that would be what I would aspire to be.
So basically, we should also explain, if you don't know what a Padawan is, it's basically a Jedi term for apprentice.
Yeah.
So due to his habit of rebelling and kind of being a troublemaker, he was forced to take a lot of meditation classes by Yoda. And as a result of his troublemaking, again, many masters were like, I don't want that Obi-Wan kid. So Yoda, who liked Obi-Wan, took it upon himself to find the perfect master for Obi-Wan, a teacher.
Yoda has a bad picker. Yoda likes troublemakers.
He does. A teacher who has unorthodox methods that would mold Obi-Wan into someone dutiful. Now, that's the official canon.
Okay.
I want to stop there before we get to talking about Obi-Wan's masters, because I want to talk about Obi-Wan's home planet.
Okay.
We're going to go back to the legends. So this is a story that is no longer canon. There is a long-standing rumor. I do not consider it to be a rumor because I've read it in novels, I've read it in screenplays, I've read it all over the place. There's a long-standing rumor that Obi-Wan Kenobi and Lars Owen from Tatooine are actually brothers.
That's my headcanon.
The story is that in the original screenplay for Return of the Jedi, George Lucas wrote a line that Kenobi mentions he has a brother named Owen, but it didn't make the final cut of the film. Now, Lars was then explicitly referred to as Obi-Wan's brother in the premiere limited set of the Star Wars customizable card game released by Decipher in 1995. What is that? I'm so glad you asked, Ashley.
What is that?
I'm so glad you asked without being prompted.
I'm an actor.
You can really tune into that force. That is basically, you know, Magic the Gathering?
Yes.
Like an RRPG sort of game?
Yeah.
That was Star Wars version of that. It took
until 1995 to make one?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Magic didn't happen until the mid-90s.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I always thought
you're probably confusing it or conflating with
D&D. I very much thought Magic was an 80s thing.
These sort of like
someone at home is fully screaming in their iPhone.
These sort of like customizable card game of Magic.
Yeah.
It was mid-90s. In fact, a Marvel one had one. I believe it was called like, oh God, what was it called? Like wasn't Marvel Legends, but it was something. It was Overpower. It was Marvel Overpower.
Lord of the Rings had some that were concurrent to the movie releases.
So there was a card during this game that confirmed
Ben Lars, Obi-Wan Kenobi's
brothers.
Not Ben, Owen Lars.
It was even alluded to in the 1999 novel Jedi Apprentice: The Hidden Past,
which, by the way, we have recommended in our recommended meeting many times.
We're going to talk about that. Those are some of my favorite Obi-Wan Kenobi novels, even though they are considered to be not canon anymore. And it was finally dealt with in canon by George Lucas himself in Star Wars Attack of the Clones when he says Lars Owens was confirmed to be Anakin Skywalker's stepbrother via the marriage of Shmi and Clegg Owen. However,
headcanon not accepted.
There is a story in the Star Wars Legends where Obi-Wan Kenobi would have dreams of his parents and his brother named Owen, and he wished to return home to them one day. After telling his future master Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon informs them that dreams can be visions of the past or the future. And during the first few months of the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan learns, while talking to Anakin, his future apprentice, that Anakin had met his stepbrother, Lars Owen, on Tatooine. So Obi-Wan was like, oh, well, maybe I was just dreaming about Anakin. Maybe I was like sort of seeing myself in Anakin's viewpoints. And it wasn't until later where he hands baby Luke over to the Owen family in Revenge of the Sith, episode 3, that he realized that, oh, that's the dream I was always having. I was having this dream where I was handing a baby over to somebody who I thought was my brother, but it was actually the stepbrother. And it was rationalized that because he has a familial connection with Anakin, his former Padawan, that he would also have a familial connection with Owen. Now, I think that's a lot of backbending over to explain what George Lucas originally intended, but
I agree.
I digress. So,
but canon is canon.
My question to you, Ashley, is:
yes.
Do you prefer Obi-Wan Kenobi is the brother of Owen Lars, or do you prefer that he comes from Stu John?
I like him better as the brother of Owen Lars. It makes the universe feel just a little bit bigger, and Star Wars is a small universe.
I have always liked that because I think it explains perfectly why Darth Vader couldn't find his son.
I agree.
For 16 years.
Yes.
Now, I know a lot of people will be like, well, he thought he was dead, but I still think you cannot tell me that Darth Vader didn't go to Tatooine for 16 years. That guy, look, if we've learned anything about new Disney Star Wars.
The only planet is Tatooine.
Yeah, you stop by. Tatooine apparently is the place you have to stop by every single year. So I'm telling you, Darth Vader parked there once a year. And you're telling me that Darth Vader, even for spite, never went back to that. My headcanon says he goes back to that farm and screws with them.
I mean, maybe.
And that might be something we might see in the Kenobi series. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah. I'm
just saying, hiding the quote unquote chosen one of the Jedi at the home of the stepbrother of Darth Vader is a bad choice.
Look, it would be like if something happened and you had a son and I took your son, the future of podcasting, and hid them in your hometown. It's a bad idea.
Yes.
It's a bad idea all around.
Yeah. It would be the first place I would look.
Absolutely.
And it would probably be a place.
Also, the chance of you just happening to come hang around are very high.
And the minute I hear that little baby talking on a mic, I'm going to know.
You're going to know. That kid's like, I'm going to tell you about my audition.
In 45 BBY, when Obi-Wan was 12 years old, he was chosen by Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn to be his Padawan learner. Now, Qui-Gon was a bit of a rebel, no pun intended. He was a maverick Jedi master.
With his Irish accent.
He was offered a seat several times in the Jedi Council. They're the ruling body of 12 masters of the Jedis, and he chose to reject them and follow his own path. He adhered to a philosophy centered around the living force. Basically, the living force theory is that the force, which the Jedi believe in, and that it gives them telekinesis powers, that the living force theory is that all Jedis can also use this power to connect to literally every living thing. And
Cerebro.
Yep. And if you meditate just enough, you might become an immortal ghost. But everybody at this time doesn't know that you can become an immortal ghost through the Force. Qui-Gon thinks you can.
Yeah, they don't know that until, episode 7.
Yes. That's also a retcon that I'm not very happy about.
Yeah.
But, okay. Ashley, I want to ask you about Qui-Gon Jinn.
Sure.
Who is basically the lead character of Star Wars Episode 1, A Phantom Menace.
Yes.
The Phantom Menace, excuse me.
A Phantom Menace. One of many Phantom Menaces.
He has a lot of love in fandom.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's because of Liam Neeson. I don't know whether it's because of the unrealized potential, because he's only basically in one movie.
They nerf him pretty, yeah.
But what do you think of Qui-Gon Jinn? Do you like Qui-Gon Jinn? Give me some Qui-Gon Jinn thoughts. Is that a question you ever thought I would ask you?
No, literally never.
Give me some Qui-Gon Jinn thoughts.
I have no thoughts. I have no feelings about Qui-Gon Jinn. I don't care about
Have
him.
some.
He takes so long to friggin' die.
How are you ever going to be the chosen one of podcasting if you don't have Qui-Gon Jinn thoughts?
I just think he's boring. I've never liked him.
And his fake beard?
I think Liam Neeson is like adequate in the part. I think most people in that movie are adequate in those parts.
Even Ewan McGregor, I would think.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think Ewan gets better over the course of those movies, but like he's fine. Natalie Portman is fine. Qui-Gon Jinn is like a nothing to me. Like he's a not, but people love him. I don't know. I wonder if it's a lot of people who were maybe young teenagers or preteens when the movies came out. I wonder if it's a lot of people attracted to men. And I wonder if it's like
and
a
is
long
Gillette
held
razor of a communication device?
Yes.
Yes, they use the Gillette razor for
They
his
did.
communication device.
I wonder if it's like a long held crush, but I have no feeling whatsoever about Qui-Gon Jinn. I'm sorry. I know that's not interesting.
I think he's an interesting character, but I almost
I know they've written books about him. I don't care.
They have written a lot of books,
And I know
about
some
him.
of them are supposed to be pretty good, and I still
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always liked his lightsaber.
Would you be interested in if they made a series about him?
Ooh.
Because obviously it would have to be set pre-episode 1. Like, do you think there's anything to mine there? Or do you think it's just him being like, I'm a Jedi, reading books and stuff?
It would actually have to be set quite a bit.
You have to cast a completely different actor.
Because you have to realize you'd either have to cast it, you'd either have to set it pre-Obi-Wan.
Yes.
Or you'd have to cast a little kid as Obi-Wan.
Or yeah.
Because you couldn't do it as Ewan McGregor.
I would just do it before Obi-Wan. I wouldn't even touch Obi-Wan.
Because I believe that Obi-Wan Kenobi is supposed to be like 18 in episode 1.
Played by like 28-year-old Ewan McGregor or something like that. I have no idea how old anyone is.
Okay,
Is
so
he really supposed to be 18?
I don't know. Okay, let's do the math here. Well, I have to
It's
open
fine.
a
It's
$1
fine.
million
No,
document.
it's fine.
You're gonna have
Math
to do the math
doesn't
on that,
matter.
Ashley.
I will literally Google how old, because I know Padme's supposed to be 14.
I think Padme's supposed to be 14. Google.
I've read the Padme books.
What is Obi-Wan's age?
How old?
And I will continue the lesson. We don't need to hear you, Bab. All right. So back to Obi-Wan. From the start of his apprenticeship, it was proving difficult. The two people. I actually just gave a reaction. What are you doing here? Come on.
He is 25.
He's supposed to be 25?
According to Wikipedia, he is 25.
Now, is it okay? All right, I guess.
It says in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, set 32 years before A New Hope, a 25-year-old Obi-Wan appears as a Padawan. I feel like that is very old to be a Padawan.
I don't care. I don't want to get stuck
fine.
on this math of a fake character.
It's fine.
I'm certain the comments are coming fast and furious, and I will tell you, I don't care. Okay. So Qui-Gon couldn't quite find a groove to teach Obi-Wan Kenobi. So he decided to just focus on Obi-Wan's lightsaber skills. He was like, well, this kid is I have a very particular set of skills. And those set of skills are to teach a young Padawan how to use a lightsaber.
And to punch wolves.
Yes. So Obi-Wan Kenobi constructed his first lightsaber, which he modeled after Qui-Gon lightsaber hilt, and he reflected his own personality, choosing blue over green. Kenobi trained in lots of dojos to improve his skills, and Qui-Gon was proud of his growing abilities. They would actually often spar in the temple between missions, and Qui-Gon Jinn taught Kenobi that there was nobility in restraint, and that you should always use the lightsaber as your last option. And that was something that actually really helped Obi-Wan and kind of helped him grow out of his youthful, rebellious nature.
I like that because it's very like rules of engagement.
It's also, it's actually, I think, pretty good writing for who was constructing these stories, because that is very much who Obi-Wan is in A New Hope.
Yes, absolutely.
So as the two, again, they trying to work together, they were having a lot of problems because like Obi-Wan Kenobi, just like whether he's the master or whether he's the student, just cannot really work in a relationship that well. So Qui-Gon Jinn would always approach all these situations on instinct because he's a guy in the living forest. He's always like, beep, beep, beep. Okay, I have a very particular set of skills. And these skills tell me the force says go.
Go to Maggie Smith.
And Obi-Wan Kenobi is kind of like Batman. He wants to always prepare. He wants to have a plan.
Yes.
And despite their differences, Obi-Wan was actually a really good student, and he really supported his master's hobbies, even though all the other Jedis at the temple kind of made fun of Qui-Gon, because Qui-Gon was like, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to research these ancient Jedi prophecies. And all the Jedis are like, are you kidding me? This chosen one stuff? And Obi-Wan was like, oh, I can help you, Master. Let's go. So they spent a lot of time in the Jedi archives together, and this is how they bonded. They bonded over reading.
Nerds. This is why they podcast.
Yes.
They're nerds.
And they found the Holocron of Prophecy, which is basically a hard drive that contained many of the prophecies, including ones that would include bringing balance to the Force, which is the chosen one prophecy that would affect Obi-Wan's life, basically the rest of Obi-Wan's life.
And there's one that says that Leia gets a purple lightsaber. They just conveniently forget that.
Yep. Obi-Wan, speaking of Leia, also learned the language of Old Alderaanian, which is actually prominent in many of these prophecies. So Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn eventually traveled to Kashyyyk during the Life Day celebration. Actually, what is the significance of Life Day, and what is Kashyyyk?
Kashyyyk is the forest planet that Wookiees are from.
Yep.
And Life Day is their not Christmas. It's a very important holiday. There's a really silly B. Arthur TV special about it.
Famously created from the Star Wars holiday TV special that they made. Now, Qui-Gon Jinn wanted to use the occasion to teach Obi-Wan Kenobi about the Wookiees' way of life, pulling arms and playing holographic chess on spaceships. So the celebration of Life Day is actually interrupted by the Trandoshans. Now, Ashley, I know you're a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
Who are the Trandoshans?
They are some nice aliens.
Actually, they're not very nice at all. They are the lizard guys. Most famously, Bosk, the dinosaur bounty hunter, is a Trandoshan.
Oh, not Gorns. Okay.
Yeah, Boba Fett's not Goran lizard friend.
Yeah.
That's who a Trandoshan
I had no idea.
The Trandoshans captured several of the Wookiees, including Qui-Gon, and intended to hunt them for sport, like the most dangerous game.
They go.
Yep. Obi-Wan, actually, that's kind of how they talk. They
it is. They hiss. Yeah. I was being serious.
Obi-Wan formed a plan with Brennan, a female Wookiee, who had also avoided being captured.
Good for her.
It was their plan that Obi-Wan would surrender to the Trandoshans, claiming to be simple students. However, he would suddenly use the Force to open the cage holding Qui-Gon and the other Wookiees. And after rescuing the others, it was decided to leave the Trandoshans in peace and to not actually fight them because it was Life Day. And
students of what? Like art students?
Just
like
student.
College students?
Podcasting. We already decided this. Podcasting.
Right.
Remember Qui-Gon Jinn?
Podcasting majors.
Qui-Gon Jinn and all right, here we go. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi are the Jedi podcasters. They go down and
they're library nerds.
They go down at the bottom of the library and they basically, all the
Force talk.
All the conspiracy.
Living Force talk.
All the conspiracy theories podcasts. That's what Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn do. So, Ashley, can you please do your best Ewan McGregor? All right, here we go.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about the Hollow Earth theory. We don't know what Earth is because this is a bunch of years before that. Or the Mothman, or what's another conspiracy theory that's not actually problematic? I don't know. Yeah.
I have a very particular set of skills.
That's true. You're sounding very Babby Bobby right now.
Well, I'm from the same island.
Oh, I thought you were from whatever freaking
I'm pretty certain that Liam Neeson is Irish.
He is.
So I think I'm doing the right dialect.
Okay, welcome back.
I can sound like Cripple of Inishmaan.
Living Force Talk. We are here today to tell you all about the Living Force.
Living Force conspiracy theories.
Conspiracy talk. We're on Ham.
Wait a minute, you're the Padawan. How are you in charge of this podcast?
We're on Ham Radio. Well, I am the one who is questionably more attractive, so I would be the main host.
I have a very particular set of skills, and that set of skills is the ability to mute your mic.
Look,
with the Force.
There's a whole bunch of stuff in this world. Don't you want to travel instead of...
I'm going to mute your mic with the Force. There it goes. You can't even hear Obi-Wan. That's how good I am. All right, now Obi-Wan, come back.
Oh, I'm back.
And that was with the power of the Force.
It's funny. I was trying to pull a Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Who are you? Wait, what happened to Obi-Wan?
Prequel line to quote, and all my brain was giving me was train spotting.
The dumbest...
He's also not that Scottish. I'm definitely doing Glaswegian.
The dumbest line from the prequels that Liam Neeson says is, "There's always a bigger fish."
Oh, I was like, the dumbest line from the prequels?
No,
that is a high
that Qui-Gon Jinn says.
Yeah.
I mean, the dumbest line from the prequels is something that Jar Jar Binks says, of course.
No,
100%.
it's definitely something about the sand, and I don't like the sand and crunchy sand. It's definitely an Anakin line.
No, fun fact, I used to actually use Ewan McGregor's when I was in a production of Dracula, and I was Jonathan Harker.
Because he's not Scottish in any of the movies.
I had a line. They always tell you this, like when you're trying to do a dialect, to like pick a line or pick like a
phrase that helps you drop into it.
They can drop into it. And I actually used a Ewan McGregor line from episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And the line was, God, I don't know if I'll
because he's doing like a light RP.
He is doing a light RP. He had this line in episode 1 where he was like, the connection between you and the Naboo is a symbiont circle. Surely you must see this.
Yeah, there you go. It's got all the vowels.
He's always very down here. This
Yes.
is where he is.
Mhm.
And that's where you can hear what James Earl Taylor does in the Clone Wars. But I always love it because, again, he's in a travel commercial and Ewan McGregor is just going full Scottish.
Full Scottish. It's yeah.
So anyways, they rescued the Wookiees and they decided to not punchy the Trandoshians because they're like, it's Life Day.
Yay, happy Life Day.
Afterwards, Obi-Wan said, hey, Qui-Gon, you're in a cave. You're in a cage.
Yep.
You have force powers.
Yep.
Why don't you just let yourself out?
Because the script didn't say so.
Well, Qui-Gon actually told Kenobi that it was supposed to be a learning experience for him to be like, you need to learn as a Jedi to find solutions that don't just involve hacking and slashing with a lightsaber.
You know, okay.
It's a big circle to get to that lesson.
I guess.
Lots of Wookiees could have died.
It'd be like if you and I were captured by the International Podcast Cartel, and I said, Jason, you're much stronger. Why don't you break us out of this cage? And you said, well, why don't you figure
No, what I would say is, I have a very particular set of skills.
And they don't involve breaking us out of this podcast cartel cage.
Skills I've learned over years of podcasting.
Yeah.
All right, now I want to hop back into the non-canon of all because there's a big ol' grumpy boy named Anakin that's going to hop in here pretty soon.
Yeah.
And I want to talk more about Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
Okay.
Star Wars Jedi Apprentice is a series of Star Wars young reader novels published between 1999 and 2002. The series is primarily written by Jude Watson, and the first book is written by Dave Wolverton. These books were fun. I've talked about these books on this podcast before because for young reader books, they don't really read as young reader. I actually think they're quite well written, and they tell of the story of Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon basically training. Now, from these Legends books, these are not canon, is basically as a youngling, they said that Kenobi was actually fascinated by machines, including models of ships, and he dreamed of becoming a pilot. Although, ironically, as he grew older, Kenobi came to despise flying because of the loss of control. And it was also this is where it was sort of canonized that if a youngling wasn't chosen as a Padawan by the age of 13, they were then sent to one of the divisions of the Jedi Service Corps to work in the library or mop the floor or whatever.
Look after the babies.
Obi-Wan lobbied hard to be chosen. And during a duel with his childhood rival, Brooke Chun, Qui-Gon watched the match, saw how gifted Obi-Wan was, and then rejected him. Because,
to teach him a lesson.
Because Qui-Gon found him to be too aggressive and too dangerous. He eventually take him on as a student because Obi-Wan Kenobi left the temple and went on an adventure of his own that sort of connected with Qui-Gon Jinn. And then Qui-Gon Jinn actually kind of loved the fact that this boy just didn't do what the Jedi Temple told him to do. He took his own initiative and he's like, that's my student.
But that's the fatal flaw of the Jedi.
Yes, it is.
It's conformity.
Yes. Look, they're all they're full of oxymorons.
Yes.
These Jedi. Yeah. Only
or contradictions, yeah.
What is the line that Obi-Wan Kenobi says in Revenge of the Sith where he's like, only a Sith deals in absolute truth or something like that?
Yeah, only a Sith deals in absolutes.
And
which is an absolute.
That's an absolute.
It's a declamatory statement. Yeah.
So Ashley, I want to ask you.
Okay.
Of these two Obi-Wans, these two teaching Obi-Wans, which do you prefer? Do you prefer a rebellious Obi-Wan to mirror Anakin, or do you prefer a by the book to be the antithesis of Anakin?
Yeah, I prefer by the book, actually.
And you want to be by the book from childhood?
I mean, maybe not from childhood, but the idea that he leaves the temple and that his adventures happen to look, I get it's a small universe. I don't believe once you would leave the Jedi Temple that they would ever bring you back. I also
But if a master made a plea for you, like Qui-Gon, Remember,
I just said I don't believe it.
I do have a very
I
particular
also
set of skills,
think-
and those set of skills include greasing the wheels.
I think one of the fatal flaws of Star Wars in general
Sure.
is that they just tell the same story over and over and over and over and over again, with different character names slapped on top of it. So by making him a little more traditionally Jedi, it sets him apart from Luke and Anakin.
All right, cool.
So.
In 42 BBY, a civil war broke out on Mandalore between a reformist movement and the traditional warriors. The reformists wanted to create a peaceful society that embraced the culture's best aspects, away from their self-destructive, this is the way kind of warring. While the traditionalists wanted to respect their aggressive traditions and take complete control of the planet. The catalyst of this civil war was that the leadership of the new Mandalorians was represented by Satine Kryze, or Kryze. I don't know how to say your last name. Just give me a break. All these Star Wars names are gibberish. AKA, she's the Duchess of Kalvala. Now, proving to be a strong influence for building a peaceful society, the Galactic Republic decided to intervene, and they sent in Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan to protect the life of the young Duchess. Due to the threat of Satine's life, she was forced to relocate, and Obi-Wan took care of her protection, while Qui-Gon kind of like rooted out the conspirators, very similar to a storyline from Attack of the Clones, where Obi-Wan did the same thing, where he set his Padawan basically to watch the princess girl.
Yeah, he looked after her, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. He's floating pears in front of her eyes, all these things like that. Now, basically, Obi-Wan probably didn't float any pears, but they did spend almost a year together on the run. While hiding on the planet Draboon, a swarm of venom mites attacked them, and Obi-Wan saved Satine's life.
He floated her boat.
Unfortunately, also during that, he fell and he dropped her, but left a permanent scar on her body. So he didn't quite do a good job. Eventually,
he does not have a particular set of skills.
Eventually, the Civil War subsided, and then as the new Mandalorians eventually defeated the Traditionalists, Satine was allowed to return home, and she had the difficult task of rebuilding her society. And as you can imagine, because Obi-Wan Kenobi had just spent a year with her, the two of them fell in love because they were two young kids and they had lots of hormones. Obi-Wan was actually willing to leave the Jedi Order to stay with her. But Satine understood that they both had obligated duties, and they both set aside their feelings and went back to their duties. Obi-Wan Kenobi went back to the Jedi, and she went back to Mandalore.
I love this storyline because, to me, it really makes me understand why he would be empathetic to Anakin and Padme. And there are several, particularly in the animated series, scenes where Obi-Wan's like, I know what you guys were just doing in that room. But he lets them get away with it. And I think that this would be I think Satine is a great character.
Let's talk about that a little bit later. I actually do want to talk about, does Obi-Wan know? Because we're not going to talk that much about Anakin because he can overwhelm the storyline.
Yes.
I wanted to focus on Obi-Wan.
And hot take, less interesting.
Yes. But I do, if you can remember to pick that back up, let's talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi. Does he know about Padme?
Okay.
So back with his master, during one mission on the planet Pajal, the monarchy was set to dissolve. And Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan assisted in establishing a democratic assembly for the government. And it was the first time that he felt Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, had actually worked well together. They had found their grooves.
Nice.
But he did realize that they found their groove because of his master's unorthodox teaching methods. And it actually pushed Obi-Wan Kenobi to find himself a new goal. And that goal was he aspired to be the perfect Jedi to follow the Jedi code. And ironically, in a way of maintaining a semblance of his rebellious nature, he rebelled against his master because his master was rebellious against the Jedi. So it's kind of interesting that he did pick up a rebellious streak, but just against his quote unquote dad.
Yeah.
Then an event called The Phantom Menace happens, Ashley. I would love for you, Ashley, to describe just a couple of sentences. What happens in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace? Because everyone out there, we're not going to tell you what happens. Go watch the movie. It's on Disney+.
There's a whiny little kid who's a less good version of Luke Skywalker, and even though everybody says he's bad and will ruin everything, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi said, nah, this is probably fine.
Sort of. There is a takeover of the planet Naboo.
I don't know if I've seen this movie since 1999, to be frank with you.
there is a takeover of the planet Naboo by the Trade Federation, the antithesis to the Galactic Republic. They send in Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan Kenobi through some various adventures. Qui-Gon dies at the hands of the Sith Lord Darth Maul. Obi-Wan Kenobi defeats Maul, ranks up from Padawan to Jedi, and now, because Qui-Gon was thinking about training a new little kid, Anakin Skywalker, that he found on everybody's favorite hotspot in the Star Wars universe, Tatooine. It's the planet that everybody goes to. Tatooine, desert planet, sand dunes, and giant worms.
It might as well
Tatooine.
be the Vegas of that star system because it's a hot, awful desert full of people gambling.
Yep. So because of that, because Qui-Gon dies, Obi-Wan Kenobi now has to take on a whiny pod racer who says wizard all the time.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So basically, just go watch it, everybody. So, Obi-Wan Kenobi, after the events of the Phantom Menace, he's now a Jedi Knight, and he has to take in young Anakin Skywalker as his Padawan. Despite the fact that Obi-Wan kind of still feels like he was cast aside by Qui-Gon during the Phantom Menace in favor of his unending belief in Anakin as the chosen one.
Because he was.
At night, periodically, Obi-Wan would wake in his quarters to find young Skywalker had snuck out of his youngling quarters to sleep at the foot of his bed.
Okay.
He then realized that Anakin sort of lost both his mother and Qui-Gon and latched onto Obi-Wan as a sense of security. And after a couple of years later, Obi-Wan takes Anakin to the planet Ilum so he can construct his first lightsaber. And Anakin, eager to impress his peers at the Jedi Temple, because he can build things. He built C-3PO, remember? He programs a training droid to mimic the appearance of Darth Maul, which Anakin is able to defeat. Mace Windu, Kenobi, and Sheev Palpatine all watch this, with Palpatine being very impressed and actually starts asking to speak with Anakin privately. When Anakin eventually tells his master that at a certain point that he wishes to leave the Jedi Order and go back to Tatooine. He feels uncomfortable that his entire life is basically basically decided for him. He surrenders his lightsaber, but Obi-Wan pleads that Anakin reconsiders. Obi-Wan then discusses the matter with Master Yoda, and he's really concerned about what did I do? Did I push Anakin away? Am I a good teacher? And Yoda asserts that Obi-Wan is still young himself, and that Obi-Wan is a very young Jedi Knight. He had to go right from Jedi Knight to basically Master. And he asks Obi-Wan, he's like, would you feel like you'd be breaking your vow to Qui-Gon if he allowed Anakin to leave? And Obi-Wan clarifies that if Anakin left, Obi-Wan would still go to Tatooine. He would still train him in the ways of Force just because of the fear that he's like, I fear that if I don't train him, the dark side will take him. Yoda then is like, hey, Kenobi, if only Jedis can train Jedis. So if you go do that, we'll have no part of you. And Obi-Wan basically says, well, if Anakin Skywalker leaves the Jedi Order, I'm leaving the Jedi Order. Soon after this, Master Yoda is kidnapped from the Jedi Temple. Obi-Wan and Anakin are brought to the task to rescue him, and they go through the trouble of finding him. And it's eventually discovered that Yoda staged his kidnapping along with Mace Windu. And the two masters wanted to test them to see if the two, as Padawan and Master, could actually work together. Because for a relationship to work, a Padawan needs to listen to the mentor needs to listen to the Padawan. And it actually created a turning point in their relationship, and it actually was the start of their genuine friendship. And the two started viewing each other as brothers.
Yeah, I like that dynamic much better.
Which is a bond that actually happens a lot during the Clone Wars. Now, our research assistant, Diego, actually has a question for both of us here, Ashley.
Okie dokie.
Here's the question. Does Anakin need a master like Qui-Gon to help control his emotions, or was it inevitable that he would always fall to the dark side? Now, let's take the prophecy aspect out of this. Was there any scenario where Obi-Wan Kenobi could train this kid out of the dark side?
No, because when he was introduced, he'd already failed.
How so?
He was already Darth Vader when the character was first introduced.
Get out of the meta-ness of the world.
There's no universe where he doesn't fail.
Forget A New Hope. Let's talk about the characters.
I don't think Anakin should have ever been trained.
Okay, why?
Because he was too old.
Oh, you think so? So by that argument, you think that Luke should have never been trained either.
Luke is not trained in the traditional ways.
Well,
because he doesn't go to the temple
and
all of that. Anakin is I'm trying to come up with a metaphor that I don't think is going to be offensive to
Space
anyone.
Jesus.
Anakin is like, he's not. Anyone who thinks Anakin is the chosen one, like, not in my Star Wars. Then I respect your opinion. That's not my headcanon. Anakin is the person who, Anakin is, I can't say this, will be so offensive. Anakin is the person who joins the military because he's smart enough, he's gifted enough, or he's skilled enough. He needs the structure. And there are red flags aplenty, baby, the whole way along. But because it is an institution that is based on a numbers game, which the Jedi Order is as well, they just let him go along. like not only is he too old, but there are so many points along the way where they should have been like, you go home to Tatooine. Thanks for your service. We don't need this anymore. Like, no, I don't think there was ever anything that could have been done for Anakin. I don't care for Anakin, if that's not incredibly clear.
I actually think, and I think it's the tragedy of it, I actually think that the only way Anakin does not go to the dark side is Qui-Gon. Because I think Anakin, because he was like Luke, needed the master that would break the rules and would not give him traditional training, very similar to what Obi-Wan did to Luke.
I also think that
throwing him in the temple, you're exactly right, I think was the worst mistake that could have ever happened to Anakin.
I also think, just to bring up like the Charles and Diana of it all, I think if he'd simply been allowed to have a relationship or engage in his relationship publicly, that might have helped as well.
Well, sure. But I think that like he was,
like, Anakin as a character is designed to point out the flaws in the Jedi system.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And at this point, the Jedi are pretty broken.
Yeah. So.
All right, so then we get to Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Ashley, would you care to describe this movie in a few sentences?
I've seen this movie once. The only part of this movie that I remember is that there is a fight with Saruman and the sand scene.
You mean legendary
that is
Star Wars character, Count Dooku.
Played by a legendary James Bond, Christopher Lee. Yeah, that's literally, I don't know what happens in this movie.
Yes, the Star Wars character with the greatest name. Count Dooku.
Yeah, I think Grievous might be in this movie.
No, he doesn't show up till the third one.
Great. No idea.
Basically, Detective Obi-Wan Kenobi unravels the mystery of the clone army conspiracy, uncovering the betrayal of Jedi Master, now Sith Lord, Count Dooku. It's the Separatist battle droids versus the Republic of clones, basically, yeah. And then at the end of it, Anakin marries Padme in secret.
Yeah.
So as the Clone Wars erupted, Obi-Wan Kenobi ranks up, because he ranks up at every movie, from Jedi Knight to Jedi Master, and Anakin ranks up from Padawan to Jedi Knight. A Jedi Master is actually a Jedi Knight who has been offered a higher ranking within the Jedi Order as a result of a Jedi Grand Master seeing that the Knight is ready for the position. In the past, in some of the Legends books, it's been hinted that the only way you can become a Jedi Master is you have to train a Padawan to knighthood. And if you get
that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, I couldn't find it, but I can tell you I can remember reading that at some other book.
Yeah.
And that you don't.
I would accept that, honestly.
Yes, and then like you have to at least train one person to knighthood to get the master ranking.
Well, because if you can teach it, then you have mastered it.
Yes, exactly. Obi-Wan Kenobi becomes a general, leading a fleet of clones known as the 212 Attack Battalion, and he quickly proves himself as an effective general. With his second in command, Commander Cody.
Yeah.
The 212 became known for their successful tactics, and they were involved in several major victories throughout the war. Early in the Clone Wars, Kenobi encounters the supreme commander of the droid army, General Grievous, and the two developed a rivalry as they constantly encounter each other through the war. Grievous considered Kenobi to be one of the few Jedis that he needed to kill face to face. Now, we're going to go back to an old love, old Satine. Comes back into it. Because Satine was adamant about keeping her planet Mandalore out of the Clone Wars.
Yep.
She wanted to establish neutrality for her people, and so much so that she established the Council of Neutral Systems, which was made up over 1,500 star systems. Now, from the fallout of the Mandalorian Civil War, the surviving traditionalists were exiled to the moon of Concordia. And there they formed a group called Death Watch. And the objective wasn't necessarily vengeance upon Mandalore, but they basically wanted to just overthrow the pacifist government of the Republic and to instill the traditional ways of the warrior, because this is the way. As such, they created an alignment and an allyship with the Separatists. And rumors started to spread that Satine was secretly building an army to fight alongside the Separatists despite her public claims of neutrality. So she's like Switzerland.
Yeah.
Except from the outside, the Allies were like, ooh, Switzerland looks like they're going to join the Nazis.
Well, even it's not a bad idea if your planet has just undergone a massive civil war to be like, maybe we want to stay out of World War III.
Less than 10 years ago.
It's not the worst idea, honestly.
So there was a terrorist attack on a rebel cruiser that appeared to be done by a Mandalorian in traditional armor. So the Jedi Council sent Detective Obi-Wan Kenobi to Mandalore to investigate. Obi-Wan went into this investigation believing Satine was innocent. So, understanding how hard she fought for the peace for her planet, the two reunite. They treat each other as peers as opposed to long-lost lovers. And, they do have the occasional sexy banter or keeping score of how many times they save each other, particularly when they get to a Death Watch camp. Unfortunately, because of her involvement working with Kenobi and against the Death Watch, it gave the impression that she was siding with the Republic, and Satine eventually had to go to Coruscant, the capital planet, and reassert Mandalore's neutrality to stave off the threat of a Republic occupation.
Yeah.
And this actually caused a passionate tension between her and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Satine actually said to Obi-Wan Kenobi that the Jedis are no longer peacekeepers, and Obi-Wan justified the Jedi's involvement as a surefire defense. Things escalate when Satine was framed for murder. She was arrested, but Obi-Wan managed to clear her name, and through the help of Senator Padme Amidala, was able to influence the Senate in favor to vote against an occupation. Now, eventually, skipping ahead, Satine, of course, would go on to die in the arms of Obi-Wan Kenobi, having been killed by Darth Maul, actually saying in her final words that she loved him.
Yeah.
And he says, I love you too.
Yeah.
So the question must be asked, Ashley.
Do they have a secret love child?
No.
That's a very popular fan theory.
Would the Jedi be better off if they were allowed to love?
Because that's why people thought Rey might have been a Kenobi. Yes, of course they would.
What were you whispering?
I said, as long as Satine's been around, there's always been a fan canon that they have a child. And that was what people thought was going to be the relative of Rey. They thought Rey was going to be a Kenobi and she was going to be their descendant.
Yeah.
Yes, they should absolutely be allowed to marry.
Why?
Because you are moderately less of a danger if you're allowed to express your feelings. It's also, I think it's way more interesting from a story standpoint. It also gives you more stakes. All of my favorite Jedis have love interests. So I think they should be.
Well, I think you can see the overarching theme of Star Wars is that you should love.
Yeah.
And to cut yourself off from love means you cut yourself off from the power to be your best self.
Yes, and that's love across all types of relationships as well. Because between Luke and Anakin as well is a big running theme. Yeah.
Now, sometime during the Clone Wars, in the years before Order 6-Day Sex, Kanan Jarrus attends a class taught by Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ashley, who is Kanan Jarrus?
He is one of the leads of Star Wars Rebels, voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr. He's a pretty great... he was a Jedi Padawan who survived.
He's not technically a Jedi, but...
well, he's a Padawan. He's a Force-sensitive guy who kind of trained as a child.
I think he does get knighted by a Force
That's
ghost.
what they call him in the end. He's
person.
A Jedi Knight. Yes.
So, Kanan...
Great character, though.
Yes, he is a great Jedi. Star Wars Rebels is great. Kanan attended a class by Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Macrame?
No, actually, I don't know what the class was.
No, of course not.
I'm going to guess planning battles against robots. Robot smashing.
Robot smashing. Love it.
Kanan actually suggests the idea that in times of trouble, the Jedi may be asked to heed a recall signal to gather back at the Jedi Temple as an emergency measure. Kanan suggests that this signal could be used to tell the Jedi to avoid the temple as well. And this is an idea that Obi-Wan Kenobi later does in Episode 3 to prevent Jedis from wandering into the temple to be killed by Imperial troopers.
Yeah, I don't mind this little bit of retconning.
I brought it up because I like Kanan Jarrus, and I thought that was kind of cool that these two characters have connected. So as the Clone Wars came to an end, there were several losses and revelations. You can see most of it on the Clone Wars TV show. Then Revenge of the Sith happens, which is the end of the Clone Wars. Ashley, please synopsize your favorite movie again.
Oh, that whiny little kid, he grew up and his girlfriend, he knocked her up and he's so mad, so he kills all the Jedi.
Basically, yes. So the Clone Wars ends. Obi-Wan Kenobi kills General Grievous.
Mm-hmm.
And during this, Order 66 happens, where Palpatine takes power and he brings Anakin along with him because Anakin succumbs to the dark side because he thinks that Padme is going to die and Emperor Palpatine has the power. And he becomes Darth Vader, and they basically completely annihilate the Jedi Order.
Except for like the 1,200 Jedi that have been introduced since that slipped through the cracks.
Obi-Wan Kenobi escapes.
Yeah.
He goes to Padme. He meets Anakin on Mustafar, the lava planet, where Obi-Wan has the high ground. Anakin hates him for it, and the Senate is dismantled, and then Obi-Wan wins.
And Padme dies anyway.
And Obi-Wan takes his babies.
He does.
Before we get to talking about these babies, Ashley, I want to talk about Padme, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Anakin Skywalker.
Missed love triangle opportunity.
So that apparently was originally intended in original drafts of Episode 3, but he pulled back on it.
The rumor I heard is because Natalie Portman was an actual child is the reason that they pulled back on that.
Yes. And apparently there's a deleted scene where from Revenge of the Sith where Obi-Wan Kenobi says that he knows about the two of them.
Yeah.
Now, so I want to talk about this. In your headcanon, when did Obi-Wan... So Anakin gets married in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. There is 3 years between that. The Clone Wars happens over 3 years. When in the 3 years does Obi-Wan figure it out?
That they're married or that they're together?
That they're married.
Pretty quickly.
You think pretty quickly?
I don't think Anakin...
I like that you make Obi-Wan a smart cookie. I don't
think Anakin is as slick as he thinks.
I agree.
And I think he knew they were together from like the freaking second it happened.
Yes.
I very much, to use your metaphor, I think Commissioner Gordon knows who Batman is.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I kind of think that since at this point they would no longer be master and student.
Yeah.
They would be, Obi-Wan.
They're closer to peers.
They are closer to peers. Obi-Wan is still his boss.
Yeah.
But Obi-Wan, they're brothers at this point.
Obi-Wan respects him.
And I think this is where you can infer a lot of the Qui-Gon Jinn-ness of it all, where like Obi-Wan is like, yeah, he's just kind of like my master. Look, as long as he doesn't go to the dark side and he gets the job done, I really don't care what he does in his off time. He can have babies, he can do whatever.
Yeah, it's not to tread too much into this territory, but it's very much like the way a lot of like Renaissance religious leaders, like it's the Borgias of it all. It's like, yeah, you're not really supposed to have children, but like I've kissed a girl too, so fine, it's fine. I
will say this, one of my favorite moments in all of the Star Wars trilogy, and I'm actually really happy that they had him say this, is I love the moment after the high ground. And by the way, Battle of the Heroes, as it's called, the fight between these two is like one of the best lightsaber fights in the entire Star Wars franchise.
Look, the prequels they're not the original trilogy, but there are some really standout moments.
The moment where Anakin is burning, and Obi-Wan says, "I loved you."
Yeah.
And then he goes, "I hate you." I love that moment. I think that's
Hayden Christensen's best bit of acting.
I agree. I also am just very surprised that a movie made in 2005 had another man say, "I love you."
Yeah.
In a major franchise. Yeah. I'm really happy about that.
Yeah. And it wasn't a joke.
Obi-Wan does love him.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's why he breaks his little heart.
And I think the Clone Wars, just because there's more hours.
Yeah. Really cements it.
Really, like, you buy it when you watch the show.
Yeah. You buy that they're best friends.
Yes. That they would die for each other.
So Anakin now is transformed into Darth Vader, into the suit, the click, 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 that whole thing that we love. Unbeknownst to Darth Vader, Padme, his wife, and his life, lived long enough to give birth to both Luke and Leia Skywalker. They didn't even change their last names. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, how can he not find them? It was agreed by Bail Organa and Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi to separate the twins, with Leia being left to Bail Organa to be raised on Alderaan. And
do you know what her mom's name is?
I don't.
Rhea.
Oh, cool. And Obi-Wan took Luke to Tatooine, handing him over to his brother, Lars Owen.
Yeah, I'm going to say that.
Now, while leaving leaving Luke with the Lars, Kenobi left and he began his exile in the Judland Wastes, in a home surrounded by the Western Dune Sea on Tatooine. Now, this is the period of time that the Obi-Wan Kenobi television series is going to take place. The time of this recording, we have not seen that television series, but I'm going to tell you some stuff that has happened in Legends and in some of the books that is in canon that I have a feeling they may play off. Okay? So, in some of the books and the comics, we see Obi-Wan watching over the Owen family, protecting Luke from an attack on their home by bandits. There's also an incident where Owen says he wants nothing to do with Obi-Wan or the Jedis and basically is like, leave me alone. Within the first year of living on Tatooine, the first year of the Empire, Obi-Wan Kenobi visits the grave of Shmi Skywalker Lars, the mother of Anakin, and he actually says to her grave that he's sad for what happened to her once innocent and promising young son. Obi-Wan begins to write journals as a record of his time on Tatooine, and also to just record as much Jedi knowledge as he can.
Which are referenced a lot later on.
To specifically give to Luke. He encounters the Jabba the Hutt gang as they were looking to extort a water tax on the families over a water drought. That actually takes place in the Jason Aaron Star Wars comics. It's a great read.
I love the Hutts, the gangster Hutts. I love them so much.
There also could be a possible appearance from Liam Neeson in this series because Obi-Wan Kenobi during this time frequently meditates and talks to Qui-Gon's Force Ghost. This is the period of time where Obi-Wan Kenobi supposedly learns how to become a Force Ghost. It is during these years because he talks to Qui-Gon. Also, when Luke Skywalker was around 12 years old, in around 7 BBY,
yes,
he went on an adventure with his friend Wendy, and he was riding a dewback. What's a dewback, Ashley?
It's a giant lizard Muppet.
Yes. And they soon encountered a sandstorm, and both of them became unconscious. When Skywalker awoke, there was a crate dragon nearby sneaking up on them. Now, if you've seen this in The Mandalorian Season 2, it's a giant, basically, dragon.
Yeah.
And as the dragon attempted to attack, Obi-Wan Kenobi appeared out of nowhere and beheaded the giant creature. And when Skywalker asked who the old man was, Kenobi said, "I'm Ben Kenobi," and revealed that he was an old friend of Skywalker's father. Now, in the legend/canon timeline, this is the first time that Luke meets Obi-Wan Kenobi. So this is what he knows about old crazy Ben. So
the crazy wizard.
Yes. And that's
their phrasing from Star Wars.
And that is the canonical history of Obi-Wan Kenobi. But before we get to that,
action figure spotlight. Which one are you talking about?
What?
You have many Kenobi action figures.
I do, but I'm going to talk about the most important action figure that I've ever owned. That is, I own the Black Series Dewback with a sand trooper on top because the Dewback from Tatooine, the giant Muppet lizard that you can ride like a horsey.
It is a Muppet, by the way. That's not me making a joke. It's
one of my favorite moments from the special editions was that they actually animated the Dewback, and he like made a noise. Like,
yeah, and he kind of like steps around a little bit.
Yep. It's my favorite Star Wars creature, so I wanted to put it in there. It's a Black Series Dewback Muppet.
Nice. Yep. Muppet. Yep. Thank you, Jim Henson.
Yeah, thank you, Jim Henson. Quick discussion, Ashley, before we get to the recommended reading. I want to talk about this. Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi. We haven't seen it yet.
Nope.
Star Wars Desert Kenobi. Star Wars Old Man Kenobi. Whatever the hell they're going to call it.
Star Wars, he's going to leave Tatooine an awful lot for a guy who's supposed to be in exile.
That's right.
Because we got to have drama in this,
and supposed
in this
to be
show.
Supposed to be the guardian of the sun that everybody knows where they are.
Yeah. Literally wearing his daddy's helmet.
I want to put you on record right now because a lot of our fans love listening when we make predictions. And then they love listening in the past.
Yeah, in the future, yeah.
Yeah, and in the future. Apparently we had an old Loki episode where somehow we basically predicted Thor Ragnarok almost beat for beat. We almost basically predicted WandaVision, I heard at one point.
We also predicted a character showing up in the latest Doctor Strange movie.
That's correct. So here, we're going to throw out another prediction, but it's going to be a Star Wars prediction, Ashley.
Okay.
Is Liam Neeson in Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi?
I hadn't thought about it before you said it. And I'm going to say yes, absolutely.
I am going to say yes, too. It is heavily rumored he is in this series.
Now, my question is it actually Hayden Christensen?
Yeah. No, Hayden Christensen has already been confirmed.
Is it actually Hayden Christensen, or is this a Pedro Pascal and he shows up for one day of filming when the helmet comes off?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. But
because I know he is signed, but there's a big difference between him being on set and him doing a voice in a booth.
So let me answer the first question.
Sure.
Number one, I definitely think Liam Neeson is in this.
Yeah.
Because Liam Neeson has voiced Qui-Gon in the Clone Wars cartoon.
Yeah, he clearly loves the gig. Yeah. And with the Force Ghost, way easier to de-age him or to sort of make him look more appropriate to the era.
Way easy to basically film him wherever a green screen is available.
In his living room in Ireland. I don't think he lives in Ireland,
and
but
pop him into the series.
Yeah.
I think he's definitely in it. And I think also because I think this is going to be their way to do like the Luke Skywalker cameos in The Mandalorian.
Oh.
What?
I bet Natalie Portman is in this too.
Yes.
I bet that was part of getting her to come back for Thor.
So here's the thing.
I bet this was all under the same contract.
My second question, second answer to you is, you talk about Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
For Darth Vader, I think do they Mandalorian it where he only pops up? Yes, but I have a prediction, and I hope this is true, that we will see flashbacks during this series to the Clone Wars. And I think they will canonize, well, it's already canon, but I think they will canonize the armor and the look of the Clone Wars animated series, except on Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. And you know what? And the reason why they're going to do that? Action figures.
That's funny because here's my hot Star Wars take. I think Matt Lanter is a much better Anakin Skywalker.
I agree.
And also would love to see him get a live action thing to do in this series. But I don't know how I feel about actually seeing Hayden Christensen embodying this era.
And I will tell you, that's if we get Padme, that's where we get her.
For sure.
Now, I will say this.
In a flashback, yeah.
Matt Lanter, who voices the young Anakin on Clone Wars, I do agree with your statement. I will say this. I did not hear this statement from Ewan McGregor, our lovely boy. I did hear this statement during an interview from Hayden Christensen. So Hayden Christensen did say that before he filmed, he watched the entirety of the Clone Wars animated series.
Smart man.
Yes.
Look, the Clone Wars also, just as a point of fact, it's way more hours of working on the character.
It's 6 seasons.
So they should be better. But I really, it's my favorite version of Anakin is Clone Wars Anakin. All right. And again, I don't care for Anakin.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the recommended reading.
Which is where if you go to geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading, Professor Jason is going to point you in the direction because this is the kind of episode where there's a lot of time for you to do your own research. So Jason, what do you have for us today?
I'm sorry. I'm just really quickly wanting to double check the title of one of my recommendations.
That's okay. If you go to geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading, we have a lot of great widgets for you. Get them on Amazon in your format of choice, and you steal from Daddy Bezos, and you support some independent creators.
Thank you. The first one is a book called Star Wars Master and Apprentice. It's a book about Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's an unexpected offer threatens the bond between Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi as the two Jedi navigate a dangerous new planet. Takes place before Phantom Menace, so you want some good Qui-Gon Obi-Wan time. That's what you want to get. The second one is Kenobi Star Wars Legends. This is a series of comic books about Obi-Wan Kenobi that are no longer considered canonical, but I really dig them, and I think there's some really good stuff in there.
Oh, I'm sure they're going to cherry pick stuff from here, too.
Yes. And then finally, my third is a series that is currently being published, written by friend of the podcast, Christopher Cantwell, Star Wars Obi-Wan.
Yes.
It's, Obi-Wan remembers his days as a young Jedi initiate, his trials as a Padawan, and his Jedi knighthood. And it's basically each issue tells you a different story from a different Obi-Wan Kenobi viewpoint. And I think it's really, really great. But also, if you want some more Star Wars Jedi Apprentice, they're completely out of print. But if you can go find them.
I will say, if you go to our recommended reading on Jedi, which was, I think, in our 100 slot of episodes, you can find them. You just have to buy secondhand copies of them. We did link to where you can get a couple off of Amazon. So they're not impossible to find. They're just a little trickier.
Let's go to the teaching tweet,
where Jason gets to do his favorite part of the podcast. In however many characters you get on Twitter now, #thread, or less, he's going to sum up everything he just taught you.
And where can they find this tweet?
At GHL Podcast. Sorry.
Isn't it rad that the old hermit space wizard from the first Star Wars film is now a cool, good-looking monk on TV? There you go.
We went with a question, not a declarative statement.
I don't need to. My teaching tweet can be whatever I want it to be. All right, now we're going to get to the honor roll. What's that, Ashley?
The honor roll is the part of the podcast where if you review us on Apple Podcasts and give us 5 stars, we'll read whatever you say. And if you're a nice international listener, we can't access your iTunes or Apple Podcasts. So shoot us a screenshot to geekhistorylesson@gmail.com and we'll read and tell us where you're from as well, please.
Look, we might have read this one on the podcast already, but I pulled it up on the credits here. This 5-star review comes from the floppiest fish, who says, "Thank you. Thank you guys for making this podcast. It helps me get through the day, and I love to hear you guys make jokes while talking and catching me up on my favorite heroes. Keep doing what you're doing."
We will.
So
Thank
there you go.
you.
They are joining Ashley, the teacher's lounge, and why don't you tell the students what's going on in there?
Well, what's going on in there today is Professor Lars is teaching people how to play catch with some Spaceballs.
That ass is in the teacher's lounge. That guy, that cruddy guy who's like, "You can do it when you're older. The moisture season's when I need you the most.
I mean, I don't know. Joel Edgerton's pretty cute.
Make me some blue milk, Baru."
That's actually one of the storylines I'm excited to see fleshed out in Kenobi.
The blue milk.
No, is the Owen and Baru of it all. Because Joel Edgerton and Bonnie, ex-Nexium member, I'm sorry, I can't remember your last name, are returning, and they're actually 2 characters I think deserve a little more character development.
Sure.
So I'm hyped to see them again.
Cool. All right, everybody, don't forget to follow this podcast everywhere. You can find us on Apple, on Spotify, on Stitcher, everywhere you can listen to podcasts, you can find us. If you like this episode, please suggest it to a friend. That's the easiest way for this podcast to grow. And while you're over there, if you want to support this podcast at patreon.com/Jawin, Jawin, not only are we doing Marvel Club, where we're talking about Doctor Strange and Thor and maybe another character as well. We're doing video reviews, and there's an exclusive print that's only available during May. So go over and check that out. We also do all these extra podcasts, including GHL Extra, where today's episode is going to be, is Obi-Wan Kenobi a good teacher? We're going to debate this. We talked about it a little bit. We're going to get down and dirty on that, just like the dirtiness of the planet Tatooine. So patreon.com/Jawin, Jawin. If you want to get the exclusive, you can only have to sign up during the month of May. Get that Doctor Strange print. Come over and support us. Just really quickly, everybody, we are taking the next week off the podcast. There will not be an episode of Geek History Lesson next week. That is because
Jason's on script. I'm opening a play. Jason's birthday's coming up.
My birthday is coming up. So we're taking we always take a week off for my birthday. So this is the mid-year break for Geek History Lesson. So we have plenty of episodes on in the past, but there will not be an episode next week. Don't worry. You'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Go listen to any of our 6 Star Wars episodes.
There you go. Ashley, where can they find you on the social medias?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok at Ashley V. Robinson. The V is very important.
Do you want to give a shout out to your play?
Oh, you can come and see my play if you live in Los Angeles during the month of June as part of the Hollywood Fringe Festival. It's called The Bearer of Bad News. You can find our tickets at unladyliketheater.com. You can find my link in bio. You can find them on the Hollywood Fringe website. And come stick around after, and we'll go out and have a meal.
That's right.
So please come see us.
Oh, every listener, how are you gonna afford that?
I didn't say I was paying for it. I said we would go have a meal.
Oh boy. What if like 5,000 listeners show up?
Well, then we will have to go, I guess, to the
like a banquet hall.
Hollywood Forever Cemetery. There's a lot of space
where we'll have
there.
to go? We'll have to go to Tatooine. It's a place everybody's going.
There you
Tatooine.
go.
There you go.
There's a lot of geography there.
Lots of room in the desert next to the Great Dragons.
Yeah.
Everybody, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jawin. That's Jawin. Thank you so much for listening to this Geek History Lesson. I just realized I didn't write down a hashtag stick around.
Well, you're fired.
Hashtag stick around, Ashley. On the spot.
Yeah.
Off the top of the dome. Who has your favorite lightsaber hilt of all of Star Wars?
My favorite lightsaber in all of Star Wars is Luke's OG lightsaber.
You mean Anakin Skywalker's too?
Or I really like the Ahsoka hilts. I think they're very cool. The reversed grips.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
A problem that I think happens in modern Star Wars is that, just like everything, is that the hilts get over-designed.
Yeah.
Because my favorite one is the New Hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Because I think it looks very tactile and looks very old.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a satellite dish that's like propelling a lightsaber beam.
Yeah, it looks very 60s and 70s, honestly.
Yeah, well, it was just made of like odds and bits that they shined up and chromed.
Well, that's how shiny and chrome. That is how lightsabers are meant to be built.
That's right.
So,
all right, thank you so much for listening, everybody. This has been Geek History Lesson. I am Jason, a very particular set of skills.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson. His last name's Inman. He didn't say that. And Professor Jason, would you please dismiss the class?
I have a very particular set of skills. My name is Qui-Gon Jinn. I was going to say that my particular set of skills was closing out a podcast, but obviously that is incorrect. So I will bounce it over to my Padawan, Obi-Wan Kenobi, to ask them to close out this podcast because this is their skill.
Please dismiss the class.
No, you do it.
I did it.
No, you do it, Obi-Wan.
I did it.
Obi-Wan, I will find you and I will hurt you.
I don't know who this is, but I'm
Close out the podcast, Obi-Wan.
Class is now dismissed.